happening? Hello, hi, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. If you can hear me, can you show me a thumbs up on the reaction button, please? Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to share my slide. Right, here we go. Okay, excellent. Right, so Hanji, I'll be talking on mindfulness and neuroplasticity. That's the topic. And it's going to be a 2-hour session. And during this session, feel free to ask any questions for clarification. And it's going to be a quite interactive and immersive session. So if you're thinking that you're just going to sit back and relax and enjoy, that's not going to be the case. I'm going to involve you in some activities where you have to be participating as well. So get ready with some notes to jot down, and especially I'm going to ask you to do some journaling. And this is where it's good if you can get a book or a few pieces of paper on standby with you and to take notes here, because I will be engaging you into some activities where you have to write down some things and then feedback to me. All right, so please do that as well. Thank you very much. So before we begin, let's have a bit of an icebreaker, just a fun session. You're going to play a game, and the winner of this game will have a prize from me. I will reveal it to you at the end of the game. Okay. And what you have to do is you have to guess these animals that I'm going to show you. Images are going to pop up, and you have to recognize them just by the eye of the animal. So let's begin. You can type your answers in the chat box. So Rajinder will help me to monitor who is going to be the winner. He will tabulate the results. The person who writes the fastest and gets the most number of animals correct will be the winner. All right. If you're ready, here we go. The first one is, so what animal is this? You can drop it in the chat box. Cool. I'm not seeing my chat box at the moment for some reason. Here we go. Okay, I see some answers there. Crocodile, snake, lizard. I'll reveal to you the answer shortly. Okay, coming back. Yes. Okay, let's move on. So the next one is this. Yeah, you can also unmute and shout out the answer, yeah? Can you guess this? Okay. The next one. I'm going to move on to the next one. See if you get this one right. And the final one, I think either this is the final one or there's one more after this. Yeah, this is the final one. Right, so Rajinder, can you help to tabulate who's the winner? I will now give you the answer, yeah? The answer, I'm going to share the screen now. So the first one was gecko, you can also say lizard. The second one was fish. The third one was cat. The fourth one was goat, followed by horse, and finally lion. So who's the winner, Rajinder? Okay, I see the answer there that Harjinder seems to have the most number of accurate answers. So Harjinder Singh. So Harjinder Singh, your prize that you have won from me is a round of applause and undying gratitude from me. Congratulations. Thank you for participating and taking part. All right, now let's get down to the more serious stuff. Okay, cool. Thank you. So, right, before we begin, I just want to gauge your understanding currently what you have of mindfulness. So would you go to, with a device that you have, another device, or you can also use the same device by minimizing and opening a new window. Go to www.menti.com and use the code 8877197 to just put in one word. In one word, what would you describe mindfulness as? This is based on your understanding, right? There are no silly answers. So just go there and throw in what you think is mindfulness, and we will be able to see then the word cloud popping up, yeah? Okay, just go ahead and do that now. All right, there we go. We see some words popping up already. Positive, psychology, being aware. That's right. Awareness, relax. Okay, there are more coming in. Being conscious, that's a good one. Awareness seems to be the bigger word where more people are associating themselves with that particular term. Present moment, being conscious, breathing method, realization, complete, heedful. Wow, that's an interesting word. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. At least I have a gauge of where your understanding is. So appreciate that very much. Thank you. So I'm just going to go back to the slides. Moving on. So, okay, what do you see when you see this particular image? What comes to your mind? So just have a look at it and think, try to see what thoughts are coming up when you see this particular image. What's happening here? This particular person or an artist is at the moment very engaged and engrossed in what he's doing. He's probably maybe creating a masterpiece. And so this is basically, you can say what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is really being one with the task at hand that you are indulging in. You're really completely blocking off everything else around you, and you are being very aware of what you're doing. He seems to be in a state, in a flow state, right? Have you ever experienced this before yourself, where you find you are suddenly doing something and you're really immersed into it, and you suddenly find that 1 hour has passed by or 2 hours have passed by, and you didn't even realize that the time flew. So that is actually a moment of mindfulness that you experience. So mindfulness is something where you're totally one with the task at hand, and so this what happens is it increases your productivity and efficiency and effectiveness in doing that particular thing. If you try to do something where your mind is running all over the place in 10 different directions it's running, chances are the quality of that task that you are trying to work on at hand won't be as great. Yeah. And so that's why mindfulness is encouraged, because you really increase your efficiency and effectiveness in whatever you're doing. So this is just a basic explanation of mindfulness. I will give you further definitions here, moving on. So I just want you to do a bit of reflection, because this session will have a lot of reflection. This is something I want you to think about. You can take out your note and maybe jot down if you want. I want you to, in this past week or two, look back at your life and think of events that possibly increased or decreased your energy levels. So what sapped the energy out of you? What particular activity or event, or what activity increased your energy, gave you more positivity, injected you with more energy in that sense? So what increased your energy? What happened? What did you feel? And how did you act? And the same thing for decrease your energy. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute to do a short reflection on this before I proceed. You have about 30 more seconds. Right, time's up. Right, so this is for you to reflect on. This was a short reflection exercise that I introduced in the beginning here to set the tone for this session. There are going to be some parts of this session where you will have to do some deeper reflection. So this was just a short one for you to start already getting into the way that this session is going to go about. Thank you for taking part in this. Let's move on. Right. I'm going to introduce to you right now a short mindfulness micro practice. So for this micro practice, what I would like you to do is just follow the instructions. I'm just going to stop sharing at this point of time. Yeah. So a short mindfulness micro practice, there are various ways to do mindfulness. It's akin to Simran. It's really being aware of your state, and it's really being aware with, hang on a second. It's really being aware of your things within you and externally in your environment, and being in the present moment. So let's do this. what I would like you to do is take both your hands in front of you, and you're going to get ready. At the count of three, I want you to clap your hands 3 times really hard. Yeah, just clap your hands hard 3 times at the count of three. Then I will invite you to close your eyes, and I will guide you from there on. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. Right. Now take a deep breath in, inhale, hold, and exhale gently. Right, now I invite you to close your eyes. Now go on and try to feel the sensations on the palm of your hand. What are you feeling right now? Are you experiencing pain? Is there some tingling sensation? And try to feel the temperature of the palm of your hands right now. How does it feel? Try to notice anything else besides that sensation on the palm of your hands within your body. Is it subsiding, these sensations? Right now, I want you to bring your focus now away from the palm of your hands to your sense of hearing. I want you to listen to all the sounds that you can hear at this point of time without trying to label them. Trying to zoom in and focus besides my voice, what other sounds that you're hearing within your room and even beyond. Now gently bring your focus back to this session. Take a deep breath in, inhale, and gently exhale. Open your eyes, wiggle your fingers and your toes, and welcome back. Right, there you go. That was a short demo or a short micro practice of mindfulness. There are various methods of mindfulness. Some people do mindfulness eating, some people do mindfulness walking, mindfulness showering, rainbow walk, and there are various methods of doing mindfulness. It's really to increase your sense of awareness. Right, I'm just going to go back to the slides. Right, what do we see in this image? This image is an image of a farmer, maybe a few hundred years ago. So the thing is, you have to try to understand is the evolution of mankind, especially in the last century. It really experienced an exponential growth. If you were to go back maybe a few hundred years ago, maybe this would be about 300-400 years ago, generally the demands of life were much less for us human beings. So for example, if you had a farmer like this, this is the experience that we went through in terms of the agricultural revolution. If you read the book Sapiens by Yuval Harari, you will see that he mentioned that mankind has gone through various revolutions. The first was the cognitive revolution. This was where mankind started being able to storytell. The humanoids, especially the Homo sapiens, which are us, Homo sapiens were able to storytell, which really then brought about the possibility to coordinate, exchange information, and this gave us an edge over the other humanoids like Neanderthals and so on. We were able to wipe them out. And that was the first revolution, the cognitive revolution. Then we went into the second revolution, which was the agricultural revolution. We were able to tame certain crops, and we didn't have to go and be hunters and gatherers anymore. We could just stay one place and produce a lot of food for ourselves. That was the agricultural revolution. It's only in the last century that we went into the industrial revolution. And even the industrial revolution had few phases. We started with the first, second, third, and right now we're in the fourth industrial revolution. But a few hundred years ago, this picture really depicts how simple, much more simpler the life of human beings were. Um, in this picture, at that point of time, a few hundred years ago, the number of decisions that humans had to make in a day would be roughly about 300 to 400 decisions that he had to make. Farmer would come out, he would probably decide what to eat and go out there and look up to the sky and think whether it's going to rain or not, and make a few decisions, go back home, decisions on the family members and so on, socially and so on. And at the end of the day, he would have made about 400 to 500 decisions in a day. Today, life has become much more demanding. Situations demand that we make decisions all the time. If you were to Google right now an average decisions that we make in a day, Google will give you the answer 35,000. Can you imagine from a few hundred to 35,000 decisions that you have to make in a day? From the moment you wake up, you are bombarded by information. You turn on your phone, you have to attend to some information and some decisions to be made there. From the moment you wake up, get ready, send the kids to school or yourself to wherever you need to go to study or college or work or whatever it is. And along the way, you have to make so many decisions. You open your email box, so many decisions you have to make. By the end of the day, apparently, you make about 35,000 decisions in a day. But that would also mean small decisions like, watching TV, what channel to turn on to, and so on. So, but what this has caused is a huge an increase in terms of demands of life. So life has become much more challenging. The level of problem solving that we have to do has really increased tremendously, exponentially actually. So this is the situation right now we are in. And that's why the pressures on us are very high. And the reason for you seeing mental health, challenges in mental health are increasing, depression and the anxiety and stress and so on. Teens, they go through a very challenging time in their life, youth. It's because that's the point of time when they are really discovering a lot of new things in their life. That's the point of time there are a lot of demands put on them to be successful. That's the time when they are trying to discover new relationships with other human beings, and they're trying new things. And so the pressures are very high, and that's why you find a lot of teens then succumb and are not able to regulate themselves effectively, and they would then not be able to cope with the challenges, and then they fall into mental health challenges like this. If you look at the statistics from New Straits Times, we find that 1 in 5 of teens or youth are in depression. Actually, depression has really enveloped massively the world in terms of about more than 300 million people in the world today globally are suffering from depression. And then you have 2 in 5 who are anxious, 1 in 10 who are stressed. So when we stress, how does your body feel when you're stressed? Do you feel a knot in your stomach? Do you feel your chest tightening up? Do you experience shallowness in terms of breathing? What is it, physiologically, what exactly do you feel? Different people feel differently. What is one ineffective thing you do when you are stressed? Is it not being able to communicate effectively? Suddenly you start to lose the choice of words you want to use and stutter and maybe lose your efficiency in communicating very well. For some people, decision making, they are not able to make the right decisions when they are really stressed. And yeah, it depends. Different people experience different things. And finally, what's one thing you wish you could do to handle stress better? So this is a reflective question for you to think about as we move on. So what is this whole mindfulness deal about? Why has it become such a revolution in the world today? A lot of corporates have embraced it, major industrial players have now introduced mindfulness into their practices at workplace. Even the police force in some countries like Canada and all, they do mindfulness exercises before they go out to the street. paramedics as well, and like about 500 schools in the UK, they teach mindfulness to their students, and it's really catching on like crazy, you know, everywhere. So why is it so? Why has mindfulness become such a major buzz activity to be indulging in? One of the reasons is because why corporates introduce it is really, it has shown and it's proven that it increases the effectiveness of employees when they practice mindfulness. Like I mentioned earlier, whatever task that you're doing at hand, the quality really increases, and your effectiveness and efficiency increases quite a lot when you are really doing it, as opposed to your mind running all over the place. Multitasking is good, but then what happens is the quality suffers a bit, right? Let's dive in a bit further in terms of mindfulness. I chose a video which would explain this very nicely. So let's take a look at this video.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? Scientists swooped in, right? They showed that physical exercise is really good for you.
Okay, thanks.
And now all of us do it. And if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribes you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
So you see that only now the whole world is catching on to mindfulness being a superpower. Well, actually, our gurus had already told us the importance of Simran, reciting Nam being one in terms of meditation. So meditation is also part of mindfulness. So you will really discover your true potential. Mantu jot surupa apna mool pechan. That's what our gurus have advised us. It's got to do with the mind. And Gurbani, you see so many references on the mind, yeah? E Manmeria, Tusadaro, Harnale, and then you find like, you know, so many references to mind. Why? Because it's telling us to really go within and find our true potential. Yeah? So the definition of mindfulness, you're right, for some of you who put it just now in the word cloud, is being in the present moment. Not so much in the future or in the past, but being in the present moment, plus being aware of everything that is happening around you, your environment, and also within you. That basically equals to mindfulness. That's the most simplest definition that I can give you. According to one of the leading experts in the world right now, his name is John Kabat-Zinn. He says that mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. So this is another definition by an expert, John Kabat-Zinn. So I think you pretty much now have an idea of what mindfulness is, but I will go further to say that being here and now, that's the important thing. The world is moving around very fast around us. It's very chaotic, but how do we find our moment to be still? Yeah. If you look at this diagram here, most of the time, we find that a huge percentage of our lives, our mind runs either to the past or to the future, and we rarely are aware in the present moment. We rarely being in the present moment. You see, we tend to go back to the past to reflect on things, but because we are negative bias, we tend to look at things that went wrong, went bad. When we do that, when we spend too much time in the past, then we pick up depression. We get depressed about things that didn't go according to how we planned them. And if you go too much to the future, you get anxious because you don't know how the future is going to, the turn of events, how are they going to be, right? So sometimes you become anxious because the uncertainty of what the future holds. So research has shown that we spend about 46 to 47% of our time either going back to the past or the future. And we are not so much all the time in the present moment. But does it mean that we shouldn't go back to the past and we shouldn't go to the future? No, that's not what it means. You are supposed to go back in the past and the future, but only very limited time. The percentage of time should be much less than the time you spend in the present moment. When you go back to the past, you can do it mindfully. We need to reflect on certain things that happen, to take lessons from there, to learn how did it go and how can I improve, how can I do it better. So you go there, you take it and you bring it back and come back to the present moment. So you're doing it mindfully. And when you go to the future also, we need to go to the future to plan. We want to plan how things will pan out. Tomorrow you need to go somewhere, you need to do a certain activity. You need to project yourself to the future and try to plan things out. So then you come back to the present moment. Why is it more advisable to be in the present moment? Because that's where life happens. The reality that we live in is in the present moment, right here, right now. The most important thing for me in my life that I'm doing right now is being engaged in this session. This is the most important thing for me right now. After this session, whatever activity I'm going to go and do, that's going to be the most important activity for me. But being in the present moment is also advised by our gurus. Our Guru Nanak Dev Ji also said, that we should be in the present moment. Hum admi ha ek dami. So we are people of the fleeting moment, that's our value, our existence. It's just the current breath. So that's why it's advised for us to be in the present moment, because that's where reality is. The past and the future can only reside in your mind. Yeah. A bit about the brain. If you look at the composition of the brain here, there are so many parts, but I'm just going to zoom in on two parts, which is one, I want to zoom in on something called the amygdala. So traditionally, how we will form the brain, we were very much, the amygdala part of it was very much in control of our lives when we were hunter-gatherers. At that point of time, that's the primitive brain, yeah? The prefrontal cortex only formed much later in our evolution of life as human beings. Back then, the survival was so important, so that's why the amygdala was larger, and whenever there were threats around us, the amygdala would fire and would release cortisols, and that will put us in a heightened state. And so that's how we remain alive. Yeah, we survived. We are hardwired that way. There were always threats around us. We were walking, maybe a saber-toothed lion could appear, or an enemy from the opposing tribe tried to kill us. So we were always on a state of alert, and it served us well, having the amygdala being so prominent, as a prominent feature in our brain back then. But then what happened is, as human beings, we evolved. We became much more civilized. We became more cultured, yeah, and we started appreciating finer things in life, music. We started appreciating arts and technology and so on. And today's world that we live, the amygdala doesn't need to fire so much. What happened is we developed the prefrontal cortex and the neocortex. You see, the prefrontal cortex is where the reasoning lies. This is where the rationalizing of things, logic thinking, and where altruism, all that is in the prefrontal cortex and also in the neocortex. So what happens is that when the amygdala fires, we will experience something called, in this diagram, you see an amygdala hijack. So this happens when there are threat around us. So what happens is the amygdala will release cortisols and the rest of the brain will stop functioning. That's amygdala hijack, yeah? Why? Because the focus is now primarily on survival. So when this happens, we go into a state of three things, which is the fight, flight, freeze responses. We either fight with the challenge in front of us, we either flee, run away, or we freeze, also a survival instinct. So when this happens, your cognitive part of the brain shuts down. You won't be able to think so effectively or efficiently. And it used to serve us well because we remain alive, yeah? But have you experienced like sometimes the teacher suddenly asks the student, "Now stand up and answer this question," and suddenly the student can't answer the question. He goes into a hijack mode, amygdala hijack mode. And although actually he knows the answer, but at that moment of time, the cognitive part has shut down. So he's unable to answer because he's having a sort of like a panic attack. In fact, if you look at a panic attack, like a plane about to crash and then you hear, or building on fire, some people will go, "Oh, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die," and they go crazy. But that's because the amygdala hijack and they're unable to rationalize. People who practice mindfulness, people who practice Simran, they are able to not allow the amygdala to hijack the brain. So in a moment of chaos or danger, they are still able to remain calm. The building is on fire, you'll find the person who is still in control and being calm would say, "Calm down, take the kids and the women, go to the corner, get some towels, make them wet, put along the doors, you call 911," and all. So they're still able to think very effectively. That's the difference between having the amygdala firing and not people who do mindfulness basically, and people who don't really do mindfulness. In this context, it also means Simran, yeah? The MRI scans have shown that people who practice mindfulness, they took the reading before they started doing mindfulness, and after a few months, the MRI scan showed that the cortisol actually started shrinking after a few months. The amygdala started shrinking after a few months. And the prefrontal cortex grew. Um, Scientists, these medical experts, they say that up to the age of 24, 25, the prefrontal cortex is still growing and new neural parts are being created. The existing ones are being widened. And the benefits of doing mindfulness or Simran practices, what happens is your state of calmness comes. The positive part is your focus and concentration becomes sharper. You are able to have a longer attention span, because currently it's interesting that experts say that the current attention span of teenagers nowadays is only about 8 seconds. That's amazing. Only 8 seconds. It's because the lifestyle that they live, constantly they pick up the phone, they swipe, or advertisement come and bombard them, information constantly come and pull them away, pull their attention away. So they say currently the average attention span of teenagers is 8 seconds. That's amazing. How do you how do you widen the attention gap? Is through Simran or mindfulness. Yeah? The benefits would be increased concentration, increased focus, increased sense of well-being, the decrease of depressive states, anxiety and all comes down, stress levels really come down. So these are the benefits of practicing mindfulness. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to engage you in a listening activity. as another short mindfulness micro practice. So do take part in this. I will play 4 audio clips. What I want you to do for these sounds, I want you to try to recognize what these sounds are. When I press play, there will be 4 sounds playing one after the other. Try to guess or try to gauge what these sounds are, right? Are you ready? Okay, let's begin, yeah? So the first one. This is the second one. This is the third one. This is the last one. All right. So did you guess those sounds correctly? I'm just going to stop sharing and look into the chat box. I see. Yeah, the first one, Narayan is saying water flowing. You are right, absolutely right there. The third one, bird sounds correct. Jug has said that water, grinding, not exactly grinding. Birds is correct. The fourth one, violin. And Sukhdev says football stadium, birds, singing trumpet. I see Jagdev saying water, dogs barking, interesting, birds, Mozart. Thank you, thank you. Very interesting. So the first one was, yes, water, river flowing. So second one was actually the sounds of a stadium, fans cheering. The third one, actually you're right, yeah, birds chirping. And the final one was a cello, the sound of a cello. Paul got it right there. Well done. Okay, for the cello. Thank you. Right, and now we go to the next activity. So I'm going to start sharing again. So the next activity, I'm going to play 4 audio clips again, very short ones. But this time I want you to try to feel what emotions are coming up inside of you, right? So if you need to close your eyes, go ahead and close also. There'll be 4 audio clips. Try to recognize what emotions are coming inside of you, right? Here we go. This is the first one. And now the second one coming up. And the third one now. Finally, the last one. All right. Thank you. So, see, the thing is with these 4 sounds, there's no right or wrong answers, yeah, because music will evoke different emotions in different people. So there's no right or wrong for this one. But I'll be very interested to see what kind of emotions you experience. I see Jagdev saying that he did feel spooked. There's a bit of spookiness and patriotism and happiness. Rajinder said it was scary for him, one of the clips. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So this exercise was for you to be more in touch with your inner emotions, because we are very good in labeling things around us. We have names for every single object in the world, you know. We even have name for this middle part here is called glabella. The tip of our shoelace is called an egglet. The dots on the I and J are called titles, and we got names for everything, all objects and everything, but we rarely really spend time to take note of the emotions that we feel and name the emotions. The emotional literacy is very weak for us. We tend to not go so much within ourselves. So this was just a short exercise and activity for you to be more in touch with the emotions that were coming up inside of you as I played those audio clips. Yeah, right. I'm going to go back to the screen, the slides again. All right, I'm going to now talk about neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? In short, it's the ability of the brain to constantly reinvent itself. The brain is constantly reshaping and reorganizing itself throughout our life. Initially, scientists thought that, you know, the brain doesn't change for the rest of your life, but now it has been proven wrong. There are synapses pruning happening where certain things are being removed, and constantly new neurons are emerging, and so certain neural pathways are widening, new neural pathways are being created. The neuron signals, the neurochemistry within the brain is constantly changing. So the brain is actually quite plastic. It's like a muscle. It's constantly changing. This is really good news for us. What you don't use, you lose, but that's a bad thing lah. If you don't use your brain, then you may start losing it as well. On the other hand, you can acquire new skills, new traits, new kind of learnings for yourself. Let's take a look at a short video which I selected also for this. Here we go.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Right, there you go. So it shows that the good news is neuroplasticity tells us that if we acquired somewhere along our life a bad habit, you don't have to be a victim of that bad habit or bad trait that you are doing. You can change. You can pick up a new behavior and improve your life towards more desired outcomes. So the thing is, neuroplasticity is influenced by what you think, you feel, and you do. So thinking, feeling, and doing. It's quite plastic in a sense. So if you want to doesn't matter what age, you want to pick up a new productive skill, you can do it. So the neural pathways, the brain will work for you. The belief is important. Once you have the belief set in what you want to do, the brain will accommodate to you in trying to achieve that goal. So when we try to pick up something in the beginning, what we find is we find it very challenging. This is because then you're trying to really work that neural pathways to become established and grow them. For example, if you really were in the beginning learning how to drive a car, yeah, in the beginning it was very difficult, right? Then you get a hang of it. There are 4 stages, there are 4 phases of this developmental road that you take on. The first one would be before you started something, you are in a state of, unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know much about that particular topic or the knowledge in that area, and you don't know how to do it. So you're unconsciously incompetent. Then you take an effort to do it and you try to learn more about it, and you reach the second stage, which is consciously incompetent. Now you are conscious that you are incompetent in that particular thing. You have knowledge about it and you know that, wow, there's so much I need to learn. There's so much I need to acquire to be good. And then you go and try to get better in that area. And as you practice more and more, what happens is then you become consciously competent. So you're consciously competent in the sense that you know what needs to be done and you're good at doing it. And finally, the last stage is you become unconsciously competent, which means you are doing such a great job and you don't even realize it, why it has become second nature to you. So until maybe somebody points out, hey, do you know you're so good in doing that? And it's, oh, really? Oh, wow, thank you for the feedback. I didn't know I was really good at doing certain thing, because that has become second nature. So that's the developmental stage of growth, when you acquire a new habit, pick up something new. So neuroplasticity is really the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your life. So it doesn't mean it stops in certain age. That's why we are Sikhs, lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is an important skill, especially in today's world, because everything is changing constantly. Forget the word change. Nowadays, everything is disruptive. You know, people used to say change is the only constant. Now this is disruption is the only constant. So we constantly need to reinvent ourselves. And jobs that we pick up within 12 months, it seems, the job becomes completely different from the moment you started working on it. So technology has also come in such a way that it's changing everything around us. Our time when we used to take taxis, we have to go out to the road and try to flag a taxi down and fight in trying to haggle with the price, to agree what price to take you to a destination. Nowadays, you have technology. You take out your smartphone, you call for a Grab, everything is organized for you. What's going to happen in future? Maybe it's going to be a driverless car coming and picking you up, and you don't even have to do anything in terms of payment, because everything is connected to your account and RFID or whatever it is. So we have to constantly learn, lifelong learning. We have to improve ourselves throughout life. That's why we are Sikh. And I want you to know that the brain is a muscle. If you go to the gym, you work out a certain body part, you grow that muscle of that particular part. Likewise, the brain is such. You need to work the brain like a muscle. If you are, for example, if you're sitting and you're trying to meditate, you're trying to do Simran, and your brain runs away, it's okay. Your brain will run in so many directions. That's fine, because even Gurbani says, Man Chanchal hai, jumps around like a monkey from branch to branch and runs in 10 different directions. But the thing is that every time you are aware, you catch yourself pulling back your mind to the present activity, that's considered like one flex of the muscle, like one repetition in the gym that you're working. Your mind runs away again, you pull it back again. So that's how you start to grow the muscle of your brain, and then your attention span increases more and more. And that's why you find people say sometimes, in order to pick up a new habit, you need to do it 40 days in a row. Some advise 40 days. Why? Repetition causes serotonin to be released, and repetition causes us for a habit to be reinforced. So when you're doing it for 40 days, what is happening is the neural pathways are getting better, stronger. I have a picture here maybe to show you. There you go. On the left here, what you see is maybe you're trekking through a jungle and there's a lot of undergrowth or bushes, or for you to walk, it's quite difficult for the first time when you're traversing this path. You may need to take out your parang and chop the branches or the bushes, the growth away so that you can carve a way for you to walk. But if you keep doing that every day, this is what happens. The path clears and it's easier to traverse on this path. So it's just like that way. That's how the brain will accommodate to you. When you decide to believe in something, your brain will adjust itself to accommodate to you. So if you are caught in a very disruptive habit, the good news is you can come out of it and you can pick up new habits and grow and become more productive. Yeah. This diagram here, this image here, it shows that, let me just tell you that, try to picture this, yeah? You go out with your friends and you'll have a good time, you go for some nice meals, and on the top right, then you go to some beautiful place, you see a nice view of some beautiful landscape or whatever, and then bottom left, suddenly at one point of time during the outing, your friend tells you something very disturbing piece of news, tells you about you, saying a fact about you that she heard about you about certain things, which really disturbed you. But then you continue enjoying, you go to the next destination with your friends, and maybe you watch a sunset, play some music, and enjoy yourself. And then you come home. Now, let me ask you this, at the end of the day, what would you remember the most? So when I ask this question to a lot of people, most of the time, the answer is they will remember that third activity, which is the bottom left, where somebody said something nasty about them or something disturbing about them. Um, that's what they remember. And why is this? Why do we remember such things? It's because we are negative bias. Yeah, we as human beings, we are negative bias. And yeah, so negative biasness is like I said, in the past we were hardwired like that, and in the past it used to serve us to our benefit in terms of remaining alive, survival instincts. If I were to tell you 10 things here, I'll sit you down and I tell you 10 things. I say that, you know, you are beautiful, you are smart, you are intelligent, you're very kind, but then suddenly I slip in one fact which is not nice for you to hear, which is a negative trait. You know what? You don't know how to speak. When you talk, it's very corrosive. The way you talk is very confrontational, and I don't like the way you speak. And then you continue. But you know what? You are. I see that you have a good heart. You help people, and then so which means out of 10 facts that I state to you, 9 are really good things, but one thing I said about you which is negative. And then I'll leave the room. Which one will you remember? As human beings, we will remember the one negative fact. And the 9 good things that are said about you, you will completely forget. That one negative fact will erase all the 9 good things that I told you. Why? Because naturally we are negative bias. Yeah, but we don't have to remain that way. And the whole industry like journalism and I mean, you turn on BBC, CNN, you pick up a newspaper and everything, you see what kind of news is being reported. It's all bad news, yeah? It's a bomb blast here, how many deaths happening there, conflict here, war here, famine situation here, and all that. Why? Because it's attractive to human beings, this bad news, yeah? So, and so they thrive on that situation of us being negative bias, yeah? So if we were to report only good news, it would be boring for us. We won't even pick up the newspaper. So that's why they put a lot of negative news there, because it's attractive. It sells. It's sexy, as they say. So that's why we have to know that we are naturally negative bias, but we don't have to be negative bias all the while. We can practice mindfulness, Simran, and all that to take us to the state from negativity to chardi kala, to a state of positivity. Yeah? So what you can do in terms of now that you know the knowledge on neuroplasticity, you can limit endorsements of negative thoughts. You can maximize volume of positive thoughts into your life. You can seek and develop empowering emotional states. Emotional states are very important. When you do something and you attach emotions to whatever you're doing, it becomes really solidified and stronger. And that's why passion is very powerful when you do something. when you know achieve something. That's why resilience is very powerful. So if I were to ask a lot of adults, what do you remember about your school life or university life, chances are they won't remember the formulas or the lessons and everything. They will remember something emotional that happened to them. They will think that, oh yeah, when I fondly remember the moment when I got selected the best student award, or receiving the prize in front of the whole school, or when I fell in love, the first love that I had in school, or the most embarrassing moment that happened to me during school days. So they remember more things that involve emotional states, yeah, rather than the cognitive part. So also you can start meditation and Simran, which the potential is massive, massive, massive. It's huge. It's just a matter of going within. Even Gurbani tells us there's nothing to change, nothing to chase externally. Whatever you want to find actually is all within you. Kahi Banako Janajai. So I don't know whether I got it right, but when I read, I find that a lot of references are made that the external that you see, everything is perishable. And so if it's perishable, then it doesn't last. What lasts is the truth, the Nam that you seek within you. Pursue new experiences. This helps also in trying to create new synapses in your brain and establish new neural connections. Keeps your brain in a healthy state, yeah? Maximize the capacity of your senses, all 5 senses. Try to gauge them and not just limit yourself to one. You can actually grow them, yeah? And so, letting in the good is important. Focus on the good things in life. Try to bring your focus more towards that. Cultivate the habit of holding on to good feelings. And does that mean that we are ignoring the unpleasant or negative things in life? No, we aren't ignoring them. We are not sweeping them under the carpet. Yeah, it's important to acknowledge them. Acknowledge the emotions that you feel. When you feel those emotions, then what you do about it is important. Yeah, you can make an effort to focus more on the good things as well. What I will take you through the second part now is an activity where you are able to reflect when you felt a negative emotion and what you can do about it. Yeah, so that's the second part I'm going to get into shortly. Because I think it's important to have practical application and not just giving you concepts. So this is the part where we go into an activity, the Think, Feel, Act tool. So before we start this, maybe you want to just take a moment to stretch. Yeah, maybe change your physiology a bit. Stretch your arms, hand, push out, and then to the side. Imagine the walls are closing in on you and you're pushing the wall out. Stretch. And then upwards. The ceiling is coming down. Lift the ceiling. Here. Maybe shake your neck around a bit. Make it loose. Take a few deep breaths. Rotate your shoulders. All right. Just take a moment to look away from the screen and to see something else away from the screen. Try to focus your vision on something, an object that is further away, or look at someone else's face and smile. Smile at them. Okay, all right. So welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to the slides for us to go through an activity, which is very important because concepts are good, but then we need a tool for practical application in our daily life. So I'm going to introduce a tool to you, which is a good tool. So this tool is called the Think, Feel, Act tool. I chose this because it's really good. It's a brilliant tool. It was developed by this organization, a non-profit organization called 6 Seconds. It's a Californian-based one. It's actually a community of change makers who came together and they do a lot of wonderful work. So this is a tool which is called a Think, Feel, Act, and I'm going to walk you through it. So this part, I really want your focus and attention. I really want you to be involved in this. This is where you get your journal out, your book out, your notes, your notepad out, and your pen ready, because this is an exercise I want you to go through, and let's do it together, yeah? So listen carefully to the instructions. I want you to think of a recent situation when you reacted in a way that you regretted, and go ahead and write about it in your journal. Look back in your past 1 week, or if you have to go further, a few weeks, the past 1 month. Was there an event that happened in your life that you reacted in a way that you regret? For some, it could be maybe saying the wrong things or shouting at your parents. For some, it could be maybe fighting for a parking spot in the mall, or behaving rudely in the car, a traffic incident. So I'm going to stop talking right now because I want you to reflect on this. Just take another about 30 more seconds. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share. So this is personal to you. It's just for you. Ten seconds. Okay. I hope that you have thought of an event in your life where you regretted. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, we're all not perfect. So it's okay. This is an exercise for us to improve ourselves. All right. Now that you know that particular activity, or sorry, that particular event that happened in your life, next, what I want you to do is this the part where I'm going to ask you to remember the situation in a bit more detail. I want you to recall what you thought at that moment of time, what you felt, and how you acted. So three things. It will look like this. You can put it in your notebook like that. The thought that you had, the feeling is your emotional state. What did you feel at that moment? And what action you took. All right. I'll guide you in terms of the thoughts that you can choose. So let's begin with the first one, which was the thought. These are the possible thoughts that you probably would have had. So you look at it from 1 to 12. If you can't find anything from 1 to 12, you can write your own one, number 13. Yeah. So just take a look at this and pick one that matches closely, the closest that matches the thought that you had at that moment of time when you were experiencing that event. I'll give you 1 minute. you are done, maybe you can just put the reaction button, a thumbs up, then I know at least some of you have completed it already. All right, okay, thank you. Okay, so all right, so I'll just move to the next one. That was a thought that you had. So what about the feeling that you experienced at that moment? Look at the list again, 1 to 13. If you can't find anything there, you can put your own one, 14. The feeling that you had, and the thing you have to, for what I give you a bit of flexibility is that you can mix and match. If you find that like there are 2 things from number 2, but the third thing is in number 9, it's okay. You can mix and match as long as you get 2 or 3 feelings that represent the closest that how you felt at that moment of time. I'll give you about 20 more seconds. Right, okay. Now we move on to the third part, which is what action did you take, right? Look at the list again. It's the same thing again. So try to choose that particular action that closely matched what you did at that moment of time. And if really it's not there, write your own in number 13. Got about 30 seconds more. All right, okay. So thank you for taking part in the first portion of this exercise, which is recalling an incident in the past. And so now I want you to be curious. Why do you think you thought, felt, and acted that way? Just be curious about this whole process, because then the learning happens much better. So now just look again at your event, what you thought, what you felt, and how you acted. So just look at it overall. And now for the second portion of this exercise, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you an opportunity to relive this incident again. So this is where, now if given a choice to relive that situation, if you're given another chance to turn back the clock, go back to that particular event as it is unfolding, how would you now choose to think, feel, and act? This time around, you have a choice. You can dictate how you want to think, how you want to feel, and how you want to act. So let's go through this part of it. So the first part, again, write down like that, thought, feeling, and action. So what is the active thought you want to introduce this time around as you relive this event? look at the choices. There are 7 choices there. Pick one that you would like to approach that event, that activity, or sorry, that event the way you want to, between 1 to 7. So choose one active thought this time around. All right. Okay, now the feeling part. What is the active feeling you want to choose from 1 to 6? Again, you can mix and match as long as you take about, ideally you take three feelings, the choice of feelings that you want towards this event if it happens again. Right. So, okay, I hope you completed that. So the last part is again the active action. This is the doing part, yeah? So choose from 1 to 6, what choice of action would you like to engage in if you have to relive that situation again? So go ahead and choose. Okay, start to close it in already. Right. Okay. So this is a short think feel activity. It's really neuroplasticity in action. So this is really trying to change the you're reformatting your brain in that sense. So sometimes the good way is during we go through so many events during the day. So at night before we sleep, it's always good to reflect how the day went and try to see things that you are not so proud of the way you acted. So try to pick that up and try to see how you can approach it differently if you were to encounter it again. So if you do that, you are creating new neural paths in your head, and the existing ones are being widened. So neurons that fire together, they wire together. So when you keep doing that, what will happen is when you encounter that same situation again, this time around, because your behavior has changed, chances are the consequences will be different. So you will, instead of reacting, you probably will respond much better towards that same incident that you encounter in future. So this is a short tool or activity that you can take and practicalize it in your daily life. And let me just go back to the slides again. So would you like to utilize this new response in future? So if the situation were to appear again in your life, would this be better? That's one thing. Second thing is, what might make that challenging or stop you? Also to recognize the hurdles in place, the barriers that are stopping you. Yeah. And or what are some steps you could take to prepare yourself to increase the likelihood of you using the new response. So we are reinventing ourselves to better outcomes in our life, yeah, by using this think, feel, act activity. So when faced with a difficult situation, what happens is we tend to react. Something happened, we have a knee-jerk reaction, we react, we explode sometimes, yeah? Or we may suppress it. If we are not the confrontational type, you will suppress it and terpendamkan, put it in bottle it up. What we should really do is respond. So the difference between reacting and responding is this. In reaction, this is typically immediate and based fully on emotions and feelings in the moment. Whereas response, this usually involves some thought. You introduce a pause. You stop there for a second before you react. You process what you thought, what you felt, and then you choose an alternative course of consequences. So responses are often delayed, but are usually rational and based on reason as well as emotion. So the think, feel, act activity is such that when you think, you feel, you introduce a pause, and then only you act. So that pause, that gap would mean that instead of reacting, you would respond, which is a much more desired way to go about in our daily lives. Yeah. See, the thing that we need to understand is when you go to a river, you will see that the river is flowing constantly, non-stop, the flow of river, yeah? If you try to stop the river, it's impossible. You can stand in the middle or wherever it is, you try to stop the river, it's impossible to stop the river because it's constantly flowing. Just like that, our mind is constantly producing thoughts. So the thoughts are constantly coming. And you can either be a victim of your mind and let your mind take you all over the place and just be like sitting in a roller coaster ride, yeah? It takes you all over the place, up and down, upside down and stuff like that. Or you can choose to decide which is the direction you want to take your thoughts to. So thoughts are very powerful. Thoughts create. I mean, you look around, everywhere around you, you're looking at a laptop, um, all the objects in your room right now, it started as a thought in somebody's head and it has physically manifested itself in front of you right now. So thoughts create. You thought of joining the e-Samelan, that's why you are here. So thoughts really create. That's how powerful thoughts are. And so we can choose what thoughts we want to do by understanding this concept, the ABC model. You will have an activating thought, which will be followed by a belief thought. And then third, what happens is the consequences. All right, let me show you in a simple format here. You see a burger advertisement. The belief thought that comes up is, that looks delicious. Yeah. And the consequences will be you will feel excited. And the action is that you'll start planning your lunch meal. So, okay, I need to either order Grab food or put on my mask and go down to McDonald's or wherever it is. Yeah. So this, for example, this is just to show you an example, the ABC model. You have an activating thought, you have a belief thought, and then the consequences, which consists of the feelings and actions. So now let's look at this model through another example. Okay, your activating thought is your lecturer reminds you about an assignment that is due next week. Oh my God, next week. Your belief thought will be, oh no, I am going to fail my assignment because you didn't prepare. So the consequences is the feeling you'll become anxious, and the action is you probably will overeat to cope with this anxious feeling, or binge on Netflix, or avoid doing that assignment. Yeah. So now, if you have this, if you follow this way, then you will be a victim of the belief thought, taking you towards a more undesirable path of consequences involving your feeling and action. Now, what we can do is we can introduce something in the middle that will change the consequences. Let's look at this example again here. So the ABC model is here again. So the activating thought is the same. Your lecturer reminded you about an assignment due next week. So this time belief thought, when you think of, oh no, I will fail my assignment, that's the point you catch your thought. The moment when you're alert, you catch yourself when you're having a negative thought, you replace it with, what are some other ways to see this? So at that point, when you introduce this alternative way of having an alternative belief thought, the consequences will change. So what happens is then, instead of feeling anxious, you still will feel anxious, but it's less anxious. And some level of motivation may come in also. And the action is, instead of overeating or binging on Netflix or whatever it is, you will sit down and work out a plan, an action plan to complete the assignment. You may not get a grade A or whatever, but still may get a B or whatever, and it's better than failing it, right? So that's where neuroplasticity is kicking in, where you catch yourself having a negative thought and introduce an alternative thought. This is how experts like psychologists, they work with people who have very damaging habits or detrimental traits who they want to get rid of, like say gambling, addiction, or whatever it is. They sit them down and they dig deeper and they go and they try to get them to see an alternative way of approaching life. So they're able to do that. They're also known as brain whisperers, yeah, these are psychologists. So this is the ABC model. So you can use this ABC model in your daily lives in trying to catch yourself when you have a negative thought and replace it with a positive thought, because the moment you do that, the consequences, the flow of events in your life will change. A different set of reality will unfold before you, which is a more better one, a more desired outcome. So the goal of knowing your ABC is to be aware of how you think, feel, and act. To produce active alternatives, like I mentioned, to regulate your thinking, feeling, and actions, and importantly is to respond rather than reacting. Reaction is often detrimental because it would be knee-jerk reaction. Whereas if you have time to pause for a while and think of the best way to rationalize the situation, then you will respond rather than react. So it's important in life not to be passive observers, but active influencers, right? Not just be a victim of your mind dragging you in all directions, but to be able to influence the direction. And what you also have to remember is, if you don't lead your life, others will manage it. It's very important. If you just let go in a sense and you don't want to lead your own life, others will step in and will manage it for you. At school, your teacher will manage your life. At work, your boss will manage your life. When you go home, your spouse will manage your life, or your kids will manage your life for you. And everybody will be dictating what needs to be done in your life rather than you taking the lead and deciding in which direction it should go. So a bit about the brain waves, the human brain waves. We are operating at different frequencies, our brain, yeah? So you see there's gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. So when we are really, you see the level of brain waves is different from 100 hertz all the way down to 0.5 hertz. So when we are at the gamma, where this is when we are problem solving and real focus in trying to do something, operating heavy machinery or whatever, it is heightened perception. So we are operating at a gamma level. And then most of the time we are at the beta level when we are doing certain things, being alert, conscious, thinking and all that. So most of the time we're in beta level. Alpha is a desired level to be in because it's like wakeful restness. So you can rest while still being awake. When you are constantly doing about your daily activities and all that, and you do a bit of Nam, Japana, Simran and all that, chances are you are touching the alpha state, which is a very healthy state to be in. Then you go to theta. Theta is when you're sleeping and you're having dreams, theta. And finally, delta is deep sleep, a dreamless state, you're not even dreaming. Delta is where the body heals itself. The repair is happening when you are in deep sleep. This is where very important for especially like students and all. Most of the time they don't sleep enough and they don't achieve the delta state. So that's why they study a lot also. When they go into the exam hall, they cannot remember the facts. Because why? They didn't have proper sleep. They didn't allow their brain to go to the delta state where the day's activities, whatever they've learned, is being transferred, downloaded into long-term memory. So delta is a very good state to be because that's where healing happens. The brain heals itself, repairs itself. It follows the circadian rhythm, and what happens is when you don't sleep to the point of delta, now research has shown that more and more that there's something called brain plaque. Brain plaque will develop, and this causes in your old age Parkinson's syndrome or dementia and all the other the brain-related illnesses. So yeah, I have another short activity, which is mindful listening. Why I think this is important, it's because most of the time, one of the things we can practice is listening empathetically to people, mindful listening. We are famous, we are known for not really being good listeners, yeah, especially in our culture. So God give us actually 2 ears to listen more and speak less with the mouth, but we tend to actually speak double than we listen. So this one is just, I'll just quickly go through. It's by Marshall B. Rosenberg, who said this very aptly. Listening mindfully requires we give others the space to share without interrupting, without advising, or even trying to correct them. It's just giving them the space to be heard. Yeah. So how can you show someone you're listening or paying attention and understanding what they're sharing? There are a few tips here to do mindful listening. Listening to understand, not respond. Most of the time what we do is, the moment the other person is talking, halfway through the sentence what the other person is saying, we are already formulating in our head the answer, what we want to hantam them, what we want to give them back, you know. So before the person sometimes can finish the sentence, you already jump in and stop the person and say what you want. So we don't really, in essence, listen to understand. Instead of really being curious, you know, and trying to have that curiosity and inquisitive listening ability and really trying to understand what the person is trying to tell us, empathetically trying to put ourselves in their shoes, we are actually more in listening so that we can answer them back. So the second point is you can nod your head. You know, physically you show that you are following the conversation, maintain eye contact, show interested facial expression, example like smiling, or if it's a serious part, then don't smile, because then the person will think that you are mocking him or her. Using open body language, yeah, you're ready to receive, more like that. 90-degree sitting arrangement is optional. Sometimes you don't want to sit directly face to face because the person will feel a bit, it may feel a bit intrusive. So you sit a bit on a sideways, side angle. You give this person the space to be comfortable in their own space while sharing to you. Paraphrasing and adding nuances to encourage is very helpful. So you can say paraphrase like, you know, I hear that you felt very upset at that point of time. Is that true? Say yes. Then you paraphrase or you add nuances like, really? Okay. So all this really encourage the person, the speaker, to speak a bit more. I initially had a plan to really launch into this activity. On the other hand, let me just cover this. Distracted listening is, we tend to interrupt the conversation. We are famous for that. Yeah, the person not yet finished the sentence, we already jump in and either we finish the sentence for them or we take the conversation in a different direction. Or when somebody is talking, we take out our phone and we play with our phone, we're checking our messages or WhatsApp or what. Actually, that comes across very rudely, you know, actually. So by right, we're supposed to put the phone away, put it completely away, and really be inquisitive and empathetic to the person when they are speaking by maintaining eye contact and really being present to the person's conversation. And then also to ask relevant questions instead of asking irrelevant questions. So the person is saying something, suddenly you ask something completely different topic. He's trying to tell you how he felt of that particular incident, and suddenly you say, hey, what's for makan? Now let's go for makan after this. I think, what do you think they cook in the langar hall? So completely irrelevant question. And distracted listening also includes looking away, avoiding eye contact. While the person is talking to you, you are looking somewhere else, and then looking uninterested or bored. The person is talking and you are yawning away. So all these are distracted listening that we display sometimes. So if we had a time, it would be nice to do a role play, but I think I want to allocate time to also do Q&A. So I think I will save this. The practice is actually to put you in breakout rooms, and then as a breakout rooms, I want you to go through a certain activity where I will ask you to share what or who are you most grateful for in your life, and then I bring you back from the breakout room, and then we discuss these questions like how was the experience as a speaker and the listener. But I think I prefer to keep some time for the Q&A. So we have 15 minutes for Q&A. So I'll just start concluding. I encourage you to try this mindful eating as an experiment. What you can do is the next time you sit down to have a meal, instead of taking the food and straight away whacking the food without really spending time to appreciate the food, what you can do is the next time you get the meal in front of you, you take it and just appreciate it by looking at it first. Spend a few moments just to look at your food, look at the color, what colors are on the plate, look at the texture of the food, the shape, and try to appreciate what you can see visually about the food. And after you have done that, then go closer or pick up the plate and smell. Try to smell your food and try to see what smells are coming into your nasal system, and try to appreciate the aroma generated by the food, yeah? And then you take the first um, spoonful, and then when you put it in your mouth, don't immediately start chewing it. First, try to feel the taste that's starting to appear in your mouth, the taste buds, which taste buds are being engaged. Try to appreciate the burst of flavor that is happening in your mouth. Then you can also suddenly start realizing that you start to salivate. The saliva will start coming out, and then chew gently, chew and feel the food in your mouth. Then when you're ready to swallow, you swallow and feel the food passing down your esophagus. Just do it 3 spoonfuls in the beginning. After that, you can continue eating your food like normal. This is another way of practicing mindfulness, and this is a micro practice of mindfulness in terms of eating, mindful eating, being grateful for the food that is on your plate. Yeah. Now we hear all the farmer protests and everything. The food that land on your plate, actually it took months and months and so much of effort to prepare to finally land on your plate. So just to be appreciative of what is actually the people, there's so many people involved in having that end product in front of you for you to eat. So also sometimes we tend to hear that there's a famous restaurant serving the best particular dish, and we're willing to travel so far. We jump in our car and we drive so far because the best, I don't know, Maggi Goreng is somewhere or whatever it is. And then when we finally reach there, we eat, but we are on the phone. While eating, we are on the phone or talking to our friends and everything. Next thing you know, the meal already finished. Did you really enjoy the food? Did you really experience the food in all its glory? Chances are no. Why? We are not mindfully eating it. Yeah, it applies to a lot of other things. When you're going to some place, it's good to be mindful and enjoy the journey as well, instead of being too concerned about reaching the destination. While you're driving, appreciate what's planted around you. And I've told some of my students also, try to practice mindful observation driving to the campus. And then they come and tell me, sir, you're right. I didn't notice that actually there's a big, beautiful tree along the way, which I didn't notice all this year. So that's why when we are mindful, we are more aware of things around us, and we are more in the present moment than being dragged too much either with a lot of other things in our life, because the demands are very high in today's world. We constantly need to be engaged in pulling us in different directions and so on. So okay, I will just end it right now so that we go to um, can go towards the Q&A. So by just sharing this, life only ever happens in one place, the present. So for wrap up, maybe you can share with me in the chat box, what's one thing you'll apply from this session? That's all. So I'm open to Q&A right now. Go ahead if you have any questions for me. I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, my name is Rajwin.
Hi, Rajvi.
I'm a HRDF student, and I've got cerebral palsy, and neuroplasticity. Stop calling me now. I'll call you later. So I've got cerebral palsy.
Yeah, go ahead, Rajwin. Yeah.
And I believe neuroplasticity is the new thing. And so how do you think I can be brain is a muscle, right? How do you think I can be more mindful in terms of my daily activities?
Thank you, Rajwin. That's a brilliant question. There are many ways to be mindful, like I mentioned, in every activity that you do. For example, when you're taking a shower also, be mindful of the the smells that you are experiencing in the shower, the smell of the soap, and then the sense of the water if you're having a hot shower, the sense on your skin, and even when the towel is rubbing against your skin and all that, to be really mindful of that particular activity that you're doing. And like I mentioned, if you're eating, practice mindful eating. One very important thing to be practicing also is the sense of gratefulness. This whole habit of being grateful for what you are experiencing, it really helps to elevate us to much more desired levels. And that's when the neurochemicals in our brains will start producing much more better chemicals that put us in a very healthy state, like endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and all that. Even when you're lying in bed before you sleep at night, being mindful of the sounds that you hear around you, of that the feeling, the touch, the senses of the pillow on your head, the blanket on your body, and being grateful that you have a bed to sleep tonight, instead of people out there who are homeless. Being grateful for everything, the roof above your head, being grateful for the food that you receive to eat, the clothes that you have to wear on your back. And so yeah, practicing mindfulness is many ways that you can do it at every moment throughout your life, throughout the day. Also, you can allocate a certain amount of time to consciously practice meditative mindfulness. This is like you choose a corner in your house, you sit down, and you create that space for you where you're comfortable to engage in Simran, and sit down and consciously try to go into mindfulness. There are a few methods of contemplative, they call it contemplative meditation, but that's a whole different session. I hope I answered your question somewhat.
Yes, thank you.
You're most welcome, Rajwin, and all the best in this.
I hope to conduct mindfulness training with you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. I see a question on the chat box, which is from Reina Preet. She's asking, what are the signs of depression and how to deal with it? Oof. I must say, Reina, I'm not an expert. I'm not qualified to answer this because I don't have any psychological background, or I'm not a psychiatrist or anything. So I'm not a mental health expert to answer this. There are different people will show different symptoms, but I can say is my time when I had spent with Doctors Without Borders, the international humanitarian aid organization, mental health was a huge component. And from there, I did see that different people display different symptoms. The signs that they display is different. Some people very clearly evident, some people are not evident at all. So only experts are able to call it out in this way, yeah. And also the coping mechanisms are different. For different people, the coping mechanisms are different. Hopefully that if we introduce healthy coping mechanisms instead of the destructive ones. Some people, they may turn to destructive coping methods like, drinking or drug abuse or other ways, or even binging on eating and stuff like that. But honestly speaking, I really can't give you a perfect answer for this, a more accurate answer on this. Are there other questions? Otherwise, I think we can end the session. Oh, there's another question from Sukhdev. How do you combat with the continuous negative thoughts blasting our daily lives? Practice. It takes practice. It's not easy in the beginning. Like I mentioned, in the beginning, it will be very tough. But if you keep at it, repetition, routine is very important. Introduce a routine in your life. And when you keep doing it and you keep at it, then chances are after some time, then it will start to bear fruits. So yeah, it's a challenge for all of us. Negative thoughts come all the time. When they come, um, acknowledge what you're feeling, and then choose an alternative thought. Like I mentioned earlier, in the beginning you are in a state of unconsciously incompetent. Then you move towards consciously incompetent. Then you will come to the third stage where you're consciously competent, and finally you will reach a very ideal state, which is unconsciously competent.
Jagmohan,
Anji.
is it possible for you to give us a sample of contemplative meditation that you said is an entirely a new ball game, so that we can have some idea of it? Just a minute or two.
I think I'm afraid to really give you, because I worry that you will get the wrong understanding of it. Why I say that? Because when I was part of this Soul of Education group, is 40 holistic educators from around the world, and when I attended the session in Prague, when all of us got together, then there are some leaders in the world globally, like Pennsylvania State University, Haifa University in Israel, and even Oregon State and all. So when they shared, there were some differences in the way they approach it, and I didn't really get a really good handle on the contemplative aspect of contemplative meditation. But I do get this. From what my understanding is that some of them are a bit reluctant to accept mindfulness the way it is being presented in the world today, because they see it in association with Buddhism. So especially some of the areas like very strong, the Bible Belt in US, they don't want to embrace mindfulness simply because there are elements of Buddhism inside. But what you can do is take the secular part of mindfulness. That is what I did in today's session. I only introduced the secular part of the mindfulness, which is, I mean, there's so many concepts and ideologies in the world today. So you can lean away from the more Buddhist tinged elements.
Thank you.
Okay. All All right. I think if that's it, then we have no more questions. Thank you so much for being present and fully participative during this very heavy session. It was not an easy session. It was actually quite heavy for me. It's so difficult for me to present it on from my home here on the laptop. And thank you for your participation. I appreciate it very much, and for being given the opportunity to do this with you. So all the best. I hope all of us together with Guruji's Kirpa, we move towards better mindfulness states, Simran states, and the journey within rather than externally too much. So yeah, thank you very much. Why Guruji Ka Khalsa, Why Guruji Ki Fateh.